Hello and welcome back to part 2 of my series of setup guides and tutorials to the Asustor ADM platform. We're continuing to utilize the Asustor NAS for this series of videos, and today I want to talk about the subject of backup and synchronization. Now, these are two terms that a lot of users have a tendency to get a little muddled up amongst a bunch of other things, and there's a third one that we all talk about, which is of course RAID. RAID is something I talked about in the previous video. When we set up this NAS for the very first time, we'll be guided through each of the individual steps, and we created our own storage pool, a RAID on this NAS. And this RAID 5 in this case, comprised of multiple drives that we combined together in order to create one large storage area. And in the event that one of these drives broke, as technological hardware may do from time to time, it allowed us to still access all of the data on this NAS. It would be known as a degraded state, and we could either utilize an available drive that's left in the system, such as one that I've got here that I would utilize in a method known as a hot spare, or I would access go to a new store, grab a new SSD or hard drive, install it inside the NAS, and it would rebuild the RAID. Now, as good as that all sounds, nothing that I've described just now can or should be referred to as a backup. RAID will never be a backup. It is a fail-safe. It is a safety net. It is a provision in the event of hardware failure. It's incredibly important indeed. Even the NAS itself refers to it as fault tolerant. It's really, really important because a number of you will own multiple phones, laptops, your family members, people in your company and more, and all of you will be sending data or backing up data from those devices onto the NAS, and you'll assume that that is a backup. And then when you start running out of room on your devices, then unfortunately you go, "Whoa, I need a bit of room on my iPhone, I better delete some stuff." It's okay, it's backed up to the NAS. But of course, it's no longer backed up to the NAS, is it? Because now the only copy of the data, now you've deleted it from your handy little iPhone, is your NAS. It's not a backup anymore. It's the only copy of that data. And that's why RAID shouldn't be factored into a backup, because it's not a backup. It is a system of redundancy. Okay? And in today's video, we are going to talk about a series of tools that are available on all Asustor ADM equipped NASes, and all of them available for free in the Application Center. Indeed, go into the Categories tab, go into Backup and Sync, and you'll find a whole host of first and third party tools here. Now, it should be highlighted that today's video, I'm almost exclusively going to focus on first party applications. I think that's important because although I'm going to be going through the setup of most, if not all, of these applications, it's worth highlighting that in some cases a third party is required, such as in the case of cloud synchronization with the likes of Dropbox or Google Drive. So I'm trying to focus as much as possible just on the first party apps. Again, I may revisit this subject looking at some of these third party applications when we look at some of these other tools that come from third parties that are still very good indeed, as well as the likes of Nakivo, who are featured on most NAS platforms, are doing a very good job of that kind of off-site backup replication. And then, of course, you have got tools that allow you to connect SaaS services, software as a service, which, although very scantily supported on Realtek NASes like this one, are available in one shape or form in more powerful NASes. Now, the reason I separate the words backup and synchronization is because both of them are designed with a different end goal. You can sort of amalgamate them into a single run, but it's worth mentioning that to get them mixed up may leave your data unsafe. So a backup is when you have a complete copy of all of your data in another location. Okay, it has to be in another location. It can be two NASes on the same network, it can be a USB drive in the same house, but the fact still remains it has to be all of that exact data in another location. Synchronization is when two different storage locations are connected and the data inside both of them is synchronized. It is maintained together. It isn't running parallel, it is running connected. Now, synchronization can be run in both directions, where any change made to one storage area automatically affects the other, or it can be one-way synchronization, where the changes on one will only be noted by the other. That can often be factored into a backup as well, that latter one there. But it's really important that you understand the difference between them. So in today's video, we're going to be utilizing that storage area we created, the volume on that storage pool. We're going to be utilizing the File Explorer with some of these shared folders. And ultimately, I'm going to show you how to make sure your data is safe, backing it up onto a USB drive, backing it up onto another NAS, and backing it up onto the cloud. Throughout this, I will talk about a few other services available on the Asustor ADM platform, and a few that aren't supported on this NAS, but are available on others. One of the earliest door ones that I should mention is the fact that this NAS is a Realtek-based NAS, and this is the DriveStore 4 Pro, and unfortunately it does not support Snapshots. If you do want to take advantage of Snapshots, you are going to need your NAS to have BTRFS on board. If you don't have BTRFS, unfortunately, you will not be able to use Snapshots. Now that's made extra galling because if you look at here on this NAS, the Pro series of the DriveStore 4, even though it has that Realtek processor and 2 gig of memory, it does not support BTRFS. Consequently, you can't take advantage of Snapshots outside of iSCSI LUN storage support. So although I am going to touch on Snapshots, it's worth highlighting that in order to really take advantage of it, you will need a more powerful NAS. Another thing I will highlight is I will be coming back to Asustor's website to talk about a couple of tools to download. Previously, we of course talked about the Control Center application that allowed you to find NASs on your network. I will be talking later on about a synchronization tool that I strongly recommend you get hold of. But for now, here we are on the desktop of our NAS once again. And the first thing I want to talk about, of course, is backups. Now, backup and restore over here can be broken into these two applications here. You have the backup and restore, and you have cloud backup. And as you might expect, the cloud backup is almost exclusively focused on those cloud services. For now, let's go in to backup and restore. Now, as you see here, immediately you've got numerous options for managing your backups. A remote synchronization with a remote targeted network attached storage device, using a file, an FTP server, file transfer protocol server here can be utilized as well. You can create an internal backup so that your backups are all conducted within the NAS, which can be useful if you're running individual volumes or storage pools within the same system, but it isn't hugely recommended. An external backup will allow you to back up onto an external device, then such as a USB drive, and one-touch backup if you're utilizing a NAS that has a USB supported button, such as this one. So let's go with the remote synchronization first. This can often be utilized with rsync, although RTRRR, real-time remote replication, is also featured on some file-based network protocol. In order to conduct a remote sync, it's worth highlighting that you are going to need another server over the network, which is what I'm going to be utilizing. I've got another NAS over here, and I'm going to be remembering this IP here. This is going to be very important. Make sure that you've got the IP of the NAS that you want to back up towards, or vice versa. Click Create, and then select the server type that you're going to be utilizing. If you're going to be using an Asustor NAS, make sure you select that option. It will make synchronization and remote traffic to a network server a great deal easier if you're using a NAS from the same brand. Otherwise, as in this case, I'm going to be using I'm going to be utilizing this NAS. I'm going to use this NAS and back up onto an rsync compatible server. And again, these backups can be conducted in either direction. So for now, it's going to be this NAS backing up onto that server. Next, it needs the IP. It can't search the network automatically, but you can add that IP. Unless you know the port has changed, most servers will always have 873 as a default port for rsync. It's also worth remembering, if you're utilizing even an Asustor NAS, to make sure on that NAS that you go into its respective backup settings and enable rsync services. If you don't enable rsync services, then there's a very good chance that this won't work. So make sure on the different NAS service you use that you enable rsync services. In this case, I've already got it enabled, so I can go ahead and add the login password, and then from there, double check that this all kicks through, or choose to use encrypted transmission. As you see, it's found the NAS, and now it's ready to carry on with this synchronization. As you can see, these are the local folders on this network attached storage device. So for now, let's go ahead and synchronize the public folder. Put a tick next to that box, and then click Next. Now it will ask you what are the folders on the destination NAS you want to utilize. You may have noticed in the previous step that if you want, you can click one-for-one folder synchronization, and that will make sure that this same folder exists on the other system. But for now, let's go ahead and select a different folder. In this case, I'm going to select the Homes folder. Click Next, and now we can choose whether we want to do a one-off backup now or a synchronized backup. Let's do a synchronized backup. I'm going to do this one every single day, and I'm going to conduct it at 1 AM. Then click Next. Give the job a name and then go through some of the configuration options. Archive mode will allow you to, after the first initial large synchronized backup, it will allow you to only have to deal with changed files and added files later on. That's an incremental backup. After the first big backup, it only manages the changes afterwards. You can compress the data to make the transfer quicker, or maintain the metadata there in the folder to ensure that if you are sending data of an important nature where software utilizes metadata, such as for thumbnails, INI files, or database files, that can be quite useful. There's other options too with regards to configuring the speed limitations and how you want the retention to be conducted, but those are for the majority of those are fairly straightforward. If you click mission mode, you can talk about how important it's going to be and what you want the system to do in the event of a failure, as well as how long you want the job to run, and if it takes an excessive amount of time, you can get the operation to cease. Useful if you have differential backups. Then click Next. Verify everything you've done so far is correct, and click Finish. And there you go, we've created our rsync task there, and we can run the backup now, or edit some of the information, or view a lot of those settings we've created. Most of the steps for a file transfer protocol server are exactly the same, so we won't go through those here. But what about an internal backup? An internal backup, as mentioned, allows us to back up data from within the NAS to other areas of the NAS. So if we click Create, and now we select a brand new folder. Let's go with Surveillance. Click Next. From there, select the destination again within the same NAS. Let's put that one in Public. Once again, have it as a scheduled backup. Do it daily. This time we'll do that at 3 AM. Again, we can have the rules if data exists in multiple locations, whether we have it replicated or traced as a backup there. And again, we've got the mission mode of what we want it to do. If we want it to do certain things within time periods, or what happens if it fails. So again, lovely stuff there. Then file permissions. What happens if the files are the same in both locations, whether we want it to create a new version, write over it, or just acknowledge. Again, and we can make sure the files are kept and nothing is deleted. Select Next, verify the job, and there you go, we've created another internal backup. An external backup, maybe we want to utilize an external USB drive that we connect to the system and then back up periodically. So in this case, we're backing up our NAS onto the external device, in this case, a USB drive. Again, we can have it working in either direction if we choose, but this is absolutely fine for our purpose. Then click Next. Select the folder on the NAS that we want to back up to the USB. So in this case, let's go with the Media folder. Click Next. Select which USB we want to utilize. I'm going to go with USB 4 and click Next. We give it a schedule. This time we're going to go with 4 AM. And again, that will be a daily backup. And again, the same options whether we want incremental or full. And again, verify all those choices, and there you go. We've now got 3 separate backups. One backing up onto another NAS, another one backing up to another area of the same NAS, which again, not really a backup. We have an external backup, and soon we're going to have a cloud backup. Before we go any further though, we should take a look at one-touch backups. If your NAS has a front-mounted USB port that has a one-touch copy button, you can have it so that if you connect the drive and tap that button, a pre-designated backup routine will kick in. For those of you that run a NAS in a different location to your home, you can carry a USB drive in your bag or whatever. Then at the end of the day, connect the USB onto the NAS and then choose whether you want to upload the contents of the USB to the NAS or the NAS to the USB. And as soon as you connect the drive, just touch the button on the front of the NAS and it will action the backup with no need to go into the graphical user interface. You can even ensure that when the job is done, the NAS safely ejects the USB on a software level for you to disconnect. It will even beep and disconnect the USB from power, so you'll see when the LED disappears that the USB is fully disconnected, not just the noise it makes. You can select the folder path here on the NAS system that you want to back up onto the USB. I'm going to go with web. And then from there, we can go ahead and click apply. And that's it. The one-touch backup is done. Now, the USB, as you can see, is not connected to the front port. Consequently, that USB port is the only one that can action a one-touch copy backup. Had that USB that we talked about here been connected to the front port, this wouldn't have been an error and it would have gone through smooth as a nut. Of course, finally, you can choose whether you want to export or import different backup settings if you've restored your NAS or you've got multiple Asustor NASes to run the same routines. It's all built in there. It may not be quite as flashy and snazzy as some brands out there, but the Asustor platform has prided itself on providing a much better value experience to buyers that get a lot more for their money. And let's face it, this is hardly brain science what we've done so far. Moving away from a lot of our bare metal and localized backups, let's talk a little bit about cloud backups. Now, cloud backups, as the name suggests, is when you want to back up to the cloud. Third-party cloud providers, such as Google Drive, such as Dropbox and more, are supported in different applications and services. But in this case, we're looking at the big guns, the blob storage there. So for example, if we select Microsoft Azure, we enter our storage name and account key, and then from there you can back up the contents of your NAS onto this cloud platform. Again, this is quite an enterprise endeavor that we may save for another video when we talk about some more hefty and more lofty storage services. But again, there are other cloud services out there supported. For most users who are going to be utilizing a standard Dropbox, Google Drive or OneDrive, I strongly recommend Data Sync Center. Again, this is the important difference between backups and synchronization. Now, as you see, as we open this up, this time we see a different range of supported cloud services. And again, that also includes backing up to another Asustor NAS. So again, we'll choose the cloud service. In this case, we're going to go with Google Drive. Next, we need to authorize that account, and we're going to utilize the disposable NAS compares email that we've been using for this YouTube channel. Go ahead with your own Gmail account or your own Google account registered email and gain access to your cloud via the window. Once you've logged in or completed your two-step verification, depending on the account you use, you'll be invited straight away to connect the Asustor Data Sync service with your cloud service provider. Click Allow, and this is going to be the same with Dropbox, OneDrive or more, but as you see, now it's connected. It'll ask you to give it a name. In this case, I'm going to go with Google Drive, and whether you want to go with different directions synchronization. Do you want to synchronize files from the NAS to the Google Drive, and therefore any changes you make to Google Drive will not be affected to the NAS, only the NAS to the Google Drive? Do you want it to be effective in both directions, where any change made on one is instantly reflected on the other? Or do you want the Google Drive to be the one that manages and actions changes over to the NAS? In my case, I'm going to go with a two-way synchronization. You can choose whether you want formats for files to be downloaded natively, particularly in the case of Microsoft, and of course Google Drive as well. Sometimes Google Drive will act with slight suspicion on some files, as some of the synchronization actions and of course some of the extensions may be treated differently. So it's worth remembering that the Asustor NAS, when it sends files to your Google Drive, in order to stop your Google Drive blocking those files traveling over because it deems them suspicious, to tick that option, as then it will force them through. After this, select the path on your local NAS. So in my case, I'm going to select the path, let's go with web again. Then select a path on the cloud. It may take an extra second for it to index the folders through the cloud as it connects with the internet level service, and then from that drive, select the folder on the NAS that you want to synchronize with. So in this case, it will take an extra moment as it sequences, maybe gets some thumbnails, and effectively gets the index for, in my case, the Google Drive account, but you may be utilizing Dropbox or more. And once it does that, you can either select the folder via the list when they're presented to you, or select Create Folder in order to create a brand new folder on the cloud platform to synchronize with your NAS. Now the folders have appeared, we can go ahead and select one. So in this case, I'm going to go for something lovely and straightforward and create a brand new folder. Let's call this new folder Asustor Sync. Click OK, and it will create this new folder in the directory of your Google Drive account. Again, the same settings of what you're going to see on screen, whether you're utilizing another cloud platform or this one. Click OK, and then it will allow you to individually select files and folders if you choose, or you can leave it on the folder level like so. Click Next, and then you can choose when you want the synchronization to take place. If you leave all the options as they are, then there will be live synchronization, and if a change is affected on either party or whichever side of this communication between the NAS and the cloud you select as the dominant, they will be instantly actioned. However, if you run a busy business and you're going to be dealing with synchronization of larger files, you do have the option of selecting the pause option there and say, for example, making sure that between 9 and 5 on a Monday to Friday basis, synchronization doesn't happen, or vice versa. It's really up to you. Click Next, and from there you can choose whether you want rules to dictate the synchronization. So for example, if a file is larger than a certain size, you can choose that it doesn't get synchronized. Alternatively, you can say if you only want certain types of files to be included or excluded on the next screen. So for example, you can choose whether you want to not include temp files or big video files that will slow things down, or leave it as it is, or add your own custom extension here at the bottom. Then you just need to confirm the settings you've done so far, click Finish, and boom, there you go. In the background, our synchronization has completed, and there we have now synchronized with the cloud platform between those two folders. And although both of these folders are mostly empty, it's still nice to know that effective changes on both or one are now implemented. And again, click the plus symbol at the bottom to add a new service if you choose. And remember, all the while you've got those other backups that we created earlier on, utilized the likes of NAS to NAS, NAS internal, and NAS to USB. So we've got quite a few backup options there synchronized as well with that cloud platform. As mentioned, the Snapshot Center, if you are utilizing a lower power NAS, then you're not going to be able to take advantage of snapshots. If you have an iSCSI LUN created, you can utilize some of them, but still not all of the snapshot services. Snapshots are blueprints of the overall storage area of your volume, which is stored over time. These do take up a much smaller amount of space than your average backup, and based on the frame and time scale that you want to go with one snapshot every hour, day, or whenever, you can create a large timeline of blueprints to your data that you can revert to later. Just bear in mind that you can only go back as far as your history goes. If you delete even one snapshot in the middle of your line, all the snapshots older than that one are gone. The same goes for if you lose all of your data. If you have a crashed volume or you have multiple failed drives, snapshots will not save you. Snapshots are not a backup, they are not a method of synchronization. Much like RAID, they are a safety net, so do bear that in mind. The final thing to talk about, and this is mostly aimed at you people that want to utilize your own kind of proprietary file management tools on mobile and desktop, is the Easy Sync Manager. Now, once you open the Easy Sync Manager for the first time, it will have a pop-up here for you where you can download the tool for Android, for iOS or for the Windows desktop platform. Download it here and it will automatically download from the available list of downloads on the on the Asustor platform there. Once you've downloaded it and installed it very easily, the application will open very quickly and looks a little like this. Let's open up the full tool. And then from here, we can go ahead and start conducting our AES Asustor Easy Sync operation. Now, what this is for is to have files and folders on the NAS which are seen natively on your PC or your mobile device. You won't need to deal with the desktop client, the browser graphical user interface as we have up to this point, but with the added benefit that this folder will be constantly synchronized with the NAS. That means that there will be a folder on your PC or mobile device that is always being synchronized with the NAS, and therefore duplicates of all of that data will live on the NAS, and from there you can conduct one of those many backup operations there in the background that allow you to have copies of all of your data. So the first thing you need to do before you do anything on your desktop is just make sure you've got Easy Sync on the PC arranged accordingly. As you see, it's already started to see that we're connected on this browser area here via the device we're on right now. You can find out more information if you're using a cloud ID or if you're utilizing the network. Everything we're doing now will still work. Again, you can set the rules of retention and long-term access for synchronization here within the application, as well as a recycle bin for that data and advanced areas where you can select different volumes where the easy synchronization will be kept. Now that's all done, we can go ahead and start creating our Easy Sync folder. Let's create a new folder very quick. Let's call it Easy. Select OK, and we've created our Easy folder there. Now, once you've installed the tool on your desktop computer here or mobile device, navigate the options. They're quite straightforward. Select Start, and the first thing it will do is ask you to enter the IP of your NAS. If you've arranged remote access to your NAS, that is internet level access to the Asustor NAS, and activated the remote protocol for your device, and you have a cloud ID, enter it here. Otherwise, over the network on a device that's on the same network, or let's be honest, in caveman internet connection as the NAS, click Select NAS. It scans the local area network, and as you can see, it's found our NAS. Select OK and enter the login credentials for your NAS. If you want to connect securely, utilizing encryption on HTTPS, click it here, but otherwise, click Next. And then from there, say whether you want one-way or both-way synchronization. As mentioned, all of these options are slightly different, and if you are going to utilize a shared folder between multiple users, such as 4 team members, all of which are going to be synchronized with the NAS, I recommend two-way synchronization, because that will mean that any changes that each individual uses makes in their files or adds new files will be added to the NAS, but then all of the connected users will have access to those files. Just make sure that in the retention policies, you make sure that you don't overwrite any other files. If you select PC to NAS, all of the connected devices that are connected to the Easy folder will send their data, but it doesn't guarantee that all the other users will access that data. And the same problem in reverse for NAS to PC. So for now, synchronized two-way is what I'm going to go for. Next, select the location on the local PC. You can do that here by selecting the folder you want to choose. So in my case, I'm going to select a folder on my local PC of minimal impact, so it makes sure that we can continue with the rest of this video with little interruption. I'm going to select the 3D Objects folder, even though there's not much in there, just to demonstrate this point. Otherwise it would slow down the network and possibly impact the rest of the video. Select NAS location where you want it to synchronize to, and as you see, we've created our Easy Sync folder, or we could have created a brand new one here. Click OK, then click Next. Again, you can go for the size of the data, how big or small you want it, if you want it to be limited in the synchronization, in case the only files you want access to are small and not large video files, ISOs, or big images. You can even add some of the exception rules and different extensions right there. Then click Finish. And as you can see, we've now created, let's close that, we've now created a synchronized folder on our PC that is synchronized with the NAS. So if we go into my local PC and go into the 3D objects folder, we'll be able to find right there 3D objects in the easy folder. And then from there, we can add anything we like. We can go in, we can open up perhaps another folder on my PC, grab some random pictures such as those taken from a News of the Week video recently, copy them over into the folder here, and remember all of this is happening natively on my PC, not on the NAS. The tick, as you can see on every one of them, indicates synchronization is completed. We can right click and look at some of the options, and in the Easy Sync menu we can create a shared link to share the file with other users, even though the file's on the NAS, as well as access some of the file history if we want to revert to older stuff. And if we go back into the Easy Sync manager and double click there, all of the files that we've just uploaded are now all accessible in that two-way synchronization. And indeed, if we go into the File Explorer, we can go ahead, scroll down, go to the Easy Sync folder, and boom, there you go. All of the data ready accessible. So there you go. In this video, we have synchronized this PC using native applications with the Asustor NAS. We've created 3 separate backup routines within the NAS for our data, and we've even created a synchronized connection with a cloud service provider. There's lots of different ways to make sure your data is safe, and again, there are further supported platforms by going into the category section, selecting the backup and sync option, and finding some tools that are far more centered towards different network and storage providers, with different options all readily available to you, all listed here. And remember, with other tools as well, such as high drive backup, which can work in a similar way to the likes of Synology Drive and other backup tools, they're all readily available to you. And some of these supporting much larger and blob and object-based storage readily. But this has been backup and synchronization tools on the Asustor ADM platform in my full overview and guide series. In our next video on Asustor, we're going to be looking at multimedia. We're going to be looking at how to access your media, share your media, and ultimately enjoy the media on your NAS in the best possible way and set it up right the first time. If you want to learn more, I recommend you click subscribe or the bell to be notified, as not only this video series will continue, but other NAS storage videos too. And of course, click like if you've enjoyed the video, as it helps me understand what I'm getting right and makes every video better than the last. And finally, if you want some free data storage advice or you need help with your NAS purchase, I strongly recommend that you check out the free advice section over on NAS Compared. It's linked in the description, and it is completely free, manned by 2 humans, me and Eddie the web guy. We don't take any payment, it's completely unbiased, and we are human beings that answer every email. So if you're a home or business user that needs help with storage or networking, go down there and use the free section. There's a donate button, it'd be great if you use it, but ignore it if you like. Otherwise, I will see you next time.